Hello my brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Horde and welcome to another Fantasy Friday video. And today y'all we are going to be talking about what type of weapons and gear would you use to survive the zombie apocalypse. Now
What do you think you're doing?
What are you talking about? I'm doing a Fantasy Friday video.
This is Horror October.
I know it's Horror October, but in such, if we actually take a look at this, I'm actually trying to describe people on how to survive a zombie apocalypse, and which does actually survive to the same form as a, I don't know, Horror October type video.
This is Horror October. You need to be talking about some demons and monsters and such. Not this.
Well, for one, it's related to a type of monster, such as zombies. And we all know you're going to pretty much also agree to this. Because, well, for one, it is technically horror, and what type of weapons can they survive from? And knowing you're probably going to agree with this, because, one, this is technically a Fantasy Friday video, and a mixture of Horror October.
I'll get after you later.
If I knew I could have done that to him a while back, I would have done that a long time ago. Alright y'all, welcome back to the Order. I am Celtic Templar, and yes, welcome back to another Fantasy Friday video. And as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, today we are talking about weapons and gear and armor that you can use to survive a zombie outbreak. Now, I wanted to put this out here, y'all. This is a biggest asked question that a lot of people do actually ask this. I've actually researched this online, and what apocalypse, subject do people mostly fear of? Rather than just being the biblical, it's also zombie, and what they could use to survive it, which is kind of hilarious. So, I want to put this out here, y'all. I am somewhat of a zombie guy, depending on the movie or a series that of which is showing it. Now, I want to put this out here. There are many films and series that don't make any sense, because one, they show, because literally, this is actually what I see in mostly the entirety of all these type of series. They have no type of body armor to speak of, not even bulletproof vests most of the time. As well, they have an unlimited amount of ammunition and firepower, which still does not make any sense. They do not have mostly any defenses, and they don't hardly ever use melee weapons to pretty much protect themselves. Most majority of the time they just show them using a gun to kill one zombie, which makes no sense. And now many people might have started saying, Templar, there is the show The Walking Dead, or the World Z, or whatever. Yes, but that's the problem. A lot of them are just based on whatever the hell this is. And as well, we also get that weird, really stupid type of part of the crazy person, or even sometimes a crazy child, such as I do remember from the old Walking Dead series back in the prison, I think. I don't know, it's been a while since I watched it, I'm still not a fan anymore. But pretty much when we take a look at it, a girl technically starts to consider zombies as human, which does not make any sense. Now, pretty much that would be the case when you know you have to put the kid down before they cause a problem. And in such, that's my point. In fact, if we were to look in the entirety of the real objective entirely, most of the time their weapons, especially, which this is what I mostly never actually see them ever use, is utility type tools, or in this case hand tools. Not something like, well, a power tool, which by this point in time, especially like say if we look in The Walking Dead or whatever, we see a lot of most of these, like say a power tool like this, still being used, and it still has a battery somehow, which makes no sense. Which, it's like, how? I'm kind of wondering. Which, yeah. Now, I can understand if, say, the apocalypse had just happened, but if it only just happened like about yes, like about a day or so ago, or a week, or maybe a month, I can understand that you probably still somewhat power, but the problem is, I don't think it's going to keep working like that if it's going to be, like, say, a year or 5 years from then. So it's not going to work out so well. So mostly you need such as the following: axes, machetes, hammers, crowbars, as well as, well, anything that's a non-power tool-like object, such as saws and whatever, to pretty much, well, build up your fortifications. Now, weapons you could probably use to defend off against a zombie attack would be axes, for one, because they are both a useful tool to cut wood, but as well also to hammer in some parts of the house, depending on the size of the axe, because there are a lot of utility axes, none of which have a hammer on the one end and an axe on the other, or just a regular type. And it's such, it is perfect, and they are light enough. In fact, there are hatchets that of which were manufactured to be a one-hand tool, and as well, pretty much perfect to kill. So, an axe from a utility type manufacturing company would be a perfect example. Another example to this could be a machete. Now, before anyone starts saying, machete, really? Well, I'm not talking like a single-bladed type, I'm talking about a utility type machete. However, though, machetes are dangerous enough and as well powerful enough to cut right through sugarcane like nothing. So, yeah, that's saying something. So, just imagine what happens if it hits the human head. So, yeah, and as well, a lot of times I have seen utility version machetes even have a saw blade on the back, which means it's also perfect for cutting, so you probably don't need a saw anymore, unless you technically feel a little safer just using the regular saw to saw down a piece of wood or whatever. Another type of useful tool could even be a hammer, or in this case, a warhammer or something like that, but no, warhammers don't exist, so yeah, at this point in time. But yes, a hammer or even a sledgehammer could probably work, and in such, a hammer is very dangerous, and they are known to kill. In fact, there are many versions of hammers out there, and you could probably also use that, the nail remover to actually probably pierce through the brain a little bit more better. But it depends on y'all. But yeah, a hammer could be a good example. As well, crowbars, which not just being used to, say, break into a building or whatever and such, you could also pretty much use it to, well, stab at a zombie. Like 1, 2, 3, or you could use the hook piece to just do this and such, or just use the back end to bash into the brain, which it's kind of easy to break in a human skull because there are many x-rays to showing on humans actually getting something in their head. In fact, even a butter knife, which Skelegram has actually had a video once out a while back, and he was testing out a ballistic gel dummy head that was a little too tough even for bullets to go through, which is not realistic. So, yeah, but that's my point I'm trying to prove, because to the major fact, human skulls are like sheet metal, I want to say. They kind of don't work out so well as dense bone like we see, say, from an ox hip, for example. So that's saying something. But as well, anything like a non-power tool related, it's perfect. So what else? Well, there could also be your armor. Now, before anyone starts saying, Templar, armor? Really? Where am I supposed to go? Armory or whatever in the United States military? Not exactly. You can actually use your heavy winter coats, or in this case, anything that of which can stop a Rottweiler bite. If now you'll know what a Rottweiler is, they are a type of dog, and such, we actually use them for a military police force. Or, yeah, anything of police force or military use, and as such, the only problem about Rottweiler bites is that the fact they are known to have sharp, jagged teeth, like any other dog, but since humans don't have that, you can pretty much understand. In fact, Deadliest Warrior tested this with one of their idiotic last videos with Vampire versus Zombie, which was probably the most idiotic of series, or episode in the series, which, yeah. So, what's the problem with that? Simple. When we have to understand, human bite force is a human bite force. But seeing the fact that a zombie's a zombie, we don't know what its type of bite force is. Let alone if it can even bite, seeing as though the jaw muscle would start to let loose and drop after a while. Because Mostly, the only thing that's up here connecting my, well, my jaw to my rest of my skull is just that. It's just muscle. It's nothing else. It's no robotic system. Otherwise, that would be kind of stupid and weird. So, yeah, we can understand why. But that's my point, though. So, what? So pretty much, well, yeah, anything that can stop a Rottweiler bite or anything that can stop a dog's heavy bite force on your arm, for example, like say a heavy winter coat, could be a good example to it. However, Rottweilers are known, and any other dog known to have sharp teeth that are known to go through it, but since humans don't, you might actually be safe. Maybe a bulletproof vest could also work, but that's a theory that I can come up with. As well, you could probably also use leather, especially from old boots or whatever, and pretty much put them on. Now, I've actually seen something called, I can't remember what this is called, Zombieland or whatever. There have been so many idiot series out there, but yeah. Apparently, there's this kid in this series that has been known to wear these armor made of rubber boots or something like that on his arms and such, which is kind of weird. I know. I don't know why. I don't know why. But yeah, that's actually what I can see in it. Another thing is the firearms. Now, this is actually where it gets kind of stupid and weird. Because, as I said, they're in any video or series or whatever, they have a multitude of firearms and they're firing them off like, well, a Texan going through ammunition on a weekend. And that's saying something for me, because I live here in Texas, and a lot of Texans have been known to go through an entire 5 magazines of ammunition in like one day. So I don't think that's going to work out in the long run, because one, you don't want to actually use up all your ammunition. You want to use semi-automatic fire and shoot for the brain. That's actually how it works. So many of you might also start asking, okay, Templar, when it comes down to it, how is it going to work out? Like, is it going to be like this or that? Well, one thing, if the zombie outbreak keeps going on, like it keeps staying on and such, it might actually start to rely on something other than cased ammunition. You might actually need to start manufacturing your own bullets. Problem is, in a post-apocalyptic world, that is very hard to do. One major reason, there are no factories that make the bullets. Unless you can get your hands on a factory, then you might be set in gold. So, but then you're going to probably have to run out of materials, so there's the problem again. So, where do you might have to do it? You might have to use black powder firearms, which this could actually work for one major example. Firearms like that have been known to be perfect, and 3 shots a minute, you might ask or start saying, is way too long. Not exactly. In fact, these guns have been known to be, especially the bullets, have been known to be whatever they sometimes could have gotten their hands on. Most of the time lead or sometimes brass, bronze, or whatever they could have gotten their hands on, as I said. But the thing is, they also were known to even sometimes use nails. That's right, nails. Regular nails. Especially at some infamous battle, I want to say, during the American Revolution, or parts of Africa, I want to say, have been known to hear British soldiers running out of firearms, or in this case, bullets, and were mostly relying on nothing more than, well, their gunpowder and rocks or nails, whatever they could get their hands on. In the United States colonies, for example, during the American Revolution, it has actually been known that American volunteers actually took nails. What they did is they hammered them down to make a rounded design. Almost rounded, but it technically would still be like a lumpy piece. However, I have heard that sometimes people have actually taken something like this, a rod, for example, which this could actually work. If you could actually get a big enough barrel to fit around a rod and shoot it, it almost would act like a dart into someone's brain. So that could actually work. Problem is, though, I don't know if this would probably work, or it would technically be like a blunderbuss, and it'd probably just go wherever it wanted to. However, since it's a straighter rod, that might actually work, or because of the weight, it might drop. So we don't know. But if you ask me, probably just shave it down a couple of times, and then you got your golden type of fall bullets. So what would probably be the major deal to that? Well, that's how it is. But now I hear many people already saying, oh, but Templar, I have millions of ammunition and such, and blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the thing. Ammunition is not exactly the easiest thing to get your hands on in a post-apocalyptic world. For one major reason, it's going to probably be taken off the shelf like that, like we see with 2020 with toilet paper, for example. See my point? In fact, I think everyone in the world wanted our post-apocalypse entirely to be, for 2020 to be the zombie version, rather than whatever the hell we had. So, yeah. Yeah. Now, one thing I do have to put this out here, though, bullets are different in various sizes and calibers. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for one, there is a 7.62 NATO, and then there is the Soviet-manufactured 7.62 for the AK-47. Different design entirely. Or as well, there's also the 5.56 NATO, which is meant to go into American-manufactured M16s and M4s, as well as some other type of allied NATO-type groups. However, we can also have the 9mm, which would be a little bit more out there, and as well, probably the most various would be the 22 long rifle, or 22. Now, many people will start saying, oh, 22 is weak. Well, here's the thing. I will leave a link down below for Grand Thumb, which actually does a video on the 22 bullet going through the skull. Then you'll pretty much understand my point. So, yeah. And in fact, as I said, there are a wide variety of bullets out there, so don't get me started on how many there are. In fact, there are different types of firearms and weapons, and the problem is you don't know if you like that gun enough to pretty much prove it as a, perfect firearm for the rest of your life, especially in a post-apocalyptic world. And in such, I actually do know one thing. If it comes to a zombie horde, I would probably use a different idea rather than my own firearms. In other words, I would probably use a bow or a crossbow, which would actually work a lot also. Because one, you can easily reuse the bolts or arrows out of them, unlike what we see with, well, firearms. Now, though, there is also to the fact that we don't exactly need to worry about that because apparently it started by the United States during this first idea that, I don't know when this actually happened, but I think it happened in 1960s or 70s or 80s, somewhere around there, that at which zombie memorabilia or zombie apocalypse was starting to come into the minds, and apparently the government of the United States then issued to the United Nations that if a zombie outbreak ever occurred, then they would actually have their military stomp it out immediately. And in fact, this would actually be a coalition of all the nations, which actually is still seen today. In fact, which literally every government in this world actually has a zombie stopping force, just in case if zombie outbreak does occur. Though it depends if the government's military is workable or not. So, yeah, that's gonna be kind of scary. Okay, now I can already hear many people already asking, Templar, what about medieval? What type of weapons and armor could we use to stop a zombie horde? Well, if we watched Game of Thrones, for example, with the ice zombies, that's going to be kind of hard to stop them. Which, pretty much though, if we know one thing from logic, zombies can easily be killed just from getting them hit in the head. Problem is, though, in Game of Thrones it was a lot different. I don't know why. So, yeah, I guess they didn't want to make it easy for the, living characters and such. Though I want to put this out here that when we take a look at it entirely, whenever I hear of medieval zombie, I'm just thinking of a skeleton in armor for some reason, which that's the best explanation for me. But in such, we can understand that zombies would have pretty much eaten whatever they could get their hands on. So, yeah, we could probably understand that the skin of a human body would have started to rot over time and it would just start to peel off. But majority of the time, the only type of idea I could probably see a zombie in a medieval world would be a peasant, or if you were that idiot explorer with armor and such to get bit because he was too stupid to wear the proper armor. So imagine, say, we have a medieval period and it's filled with zombies, for example. That could be a good explanation. Now, one way we can actually understand this could see, like, well, what weapons and armor would they use? Well, one of the biggest armors out there could actually be the most simplest, and that would be this. This is gambeson. Gambeson, or padded armor, is actually very strong. It has been known to stop the cut of a sword below. In fact, the sword below blade has been known to sometimes just break a bone or two, but done nothing. Now, I could probably also see some people probably going further and probably placing mail over themselves, which only if they could afford it, that is. And then some of them would also start to wear plate armor, which is not a bad idea. But, as I said, it depends. And as well, they could probably even have padded leggings, for example. If none of y'all have actually seen me wear my padded leggings yet, I will leave a link down below in the medieval plate armor I think it was in. So, or as well with my medieval mail leggings, for example, which could be a better explanation because I do wear those with the padded leggings. And in such, we can understand why. So, what is it about padding that could make it workable? Simple. It could actually stop the bite to actually getting to your limbs. And the thing is, my legs would probably be the most vulnerable thing on my body rather than my arms, especially to the fact if there's a zombie crawling up when I don't see it and there's a zombie horde. So guess what? I'm going to want to wear something on my legs rather than deal with the fact that there's a dead guy about to bite on my leg, or worse, on my groin. Yeah. Hey, Def, do we have any chainmail underwear just to be safe? No? Okay. Oh. But now, pretty much though, yeah. That's what we have to go through. So, pretty much when it comes to armor, padding would be the best option, as well with also maybe a leather, but leather has been known to be weak, but only depending on what it was. So, if we take the fact that it's a human bite that's going to be causing the problem mostly, not a zombie swinging a sword, I think we might survive. Problem is though, since we're going up against a zombie army back then, and if they're controlled by an evil sorcerer or whatever, it depends on the whatever you see, I probably would see our adventurer probably mostly wearing padding, as well as sometimes maybe mail, just for say more protection, and as well probably even a mail hood, and pretty much probably a helmet just to be safe. But still though, that could still work. Now though, what about also with the fact on the melee weapons? Well, I could already hear a lot of idiots already saying, "Oh, Templar, you could use a sword." No. One, to the major fact, swords will start to rust. They will start to, anything rusts if you don't technically maintain it. But one thing we have to understand is that when it comes to a sword, it will have one major drawback, and that would be its sharpness. And over time, that sharpness would dull. Now, I hear many people already saying, "Oh, but Templar, that's the same with a machete." Well, that's the difference. A machete hardly needs to actually be sharpened. It can actually be said with a katana, for example, which I have actually seen a lot of idiots in Hollywood, or as well in anime, have actually shown a real working katana blade cutting through pretty much zombies like nothing. And The Walking Dead does not help. It is not a perfect example. Because one, that sword is way too long for the fact of what you're going to need it to be used for. You're going to end up having to waste more energy swinging a bigger sword around than what you need. So I would probably have to say a falchion or a messer would probably be a little bit perfect, just to be safe. But imagine, say, for example, you have to deal with a zombie soldier, for example, and he's wearing a helmet. that sword might not be so perfect to use against them, seen to the fact that if they're wearing armor, it's not going to do anything. But technically, just have him keep coming at you. The only way to probably kill him is if you stab him right in the face, but that would probably be not the best idea because, one, it's gotten closer to you. So, swords, not likely. Now, though, I can already hear maybe people already asking, okay, Templar, what would be the primary? Well, one would be a spear. Now, if you know how dangerous a spear is probably the king of the battlefield. Well, actually, it is the king of the battlefield, because one, it's been used for centuries. And pretty much, though, it's actually still somewhat used as a modern-day bayonet. That's the best way I can explain it. So, yeah, in fact, the bayonet was the modelization of the spear into the gun combination. So, in other words, we don't no longer need to deal with those massive pike formations. So, yeah. But in such, we can understand that the entirety of the spear would still be usable, especially in the medieval period. One, it can actually keep the zombie back, or the zombie horde back, and it would probably cause a pile-up. Now, many of you might say, oh, Templar, how effective can you actually be at the accuracy of a spear? Actually, you can be very accurate. For one, you can easily stab in the same area, and it can only differ, like, say, for example, like, say, well, a centimeter or two, like this or that, but you could still pretty much hit the brain, especially to heads, which are somewhat easy to hit, depending on what these things are. And seeing the fact that a zombie is not going to pretty much dodge the thing, it's going to be pretty much easy to just stab at a zombie with a spear. Though what you never want to do is stick out your arm so much that another zombie just bites on it, but that's why you got the armor. So, yeah. Spear is definitely in. Now, what other weapons? Well, say for example we are actually dealing with zombies, for example, like the zombie horde, and we need, well, a weapon that actually get through their, well, plate armor, for example. And in such, well, that's where something like this comes into play, a warhammer. Now, I want to put this out here. When it comes to warhammers, these things are very dangerous and very light and effective. And the same could also be said about medieval maces. Now, before anyone starts saying, Templar, how is a dangerous weapon like this supposed to do any effective use? Well, one, if we understand to the form of, well, the medieval warhammer and mace, the warhammer is slightly lighter and such, because this is a cavalry-style warhammer, which reason it's a cavalry is because of its length. So, but still, this is a dangerous weapon. And the fact is, I could easily just do this like nothing. And if this guy is wearing armor, I could easily just use the spike end to penetrate through his, well, his helmet and his skull. So it's not exactly going to be that hard to kill this thing. Problem is, if it is of a thickness of type gauge, like say 14 gauge, that might be a little hard and tricky, which depends on what gauge of steel it is. So maybe a mace might work a little bit better, we don't know, but I'm still going with a warhammer like this, maybe. Or as well, even sometimes there are even weapons known as the pole hammer, or even a halberd, which are technically a mixture of a axe or a hammer, or as well as spear in one. In fact, I even have a pole hammer here. I will be reviewing it very soon in November, but you see my point. Now, one thing we have to understand is it has a, well, spike on the end, so I can just stab in the face. That's all I need to do. However, if it has, like, say, a visored helm, like, say, I don't know, something like our Crusader buddies were wearing, like this might be a little problematic unless I hit to the back end of the skull. However, if they start to get to the great helm, for example, that would be extremely hard. For one, I technically would not actually mind him probably wearing this, because one, let me put this on and I can prove my point. Because look at this. I can't bite somebody with this. It is like impossible. Because look, even if I press up against it, I can't get my mouth out because my mouth is covered. And as well, most of the only people that wore these were those of the medieval knights. during the, well, the 1300s, or as well the late 1200s, and pretty much these guys would have actually, well, once pretty much worn something like this with full mail type armor. So I don't know if a zombie would have actually killed the knight, but probably if the knight was stupid enough to ride into the mixture of a zombie horde, probably. Which I'll probably have to get into tactics very soon, which, my best bet is that the only way the zombies got at this, guys, that they got him at his, area. Yeah, that does not sound perfect. Alright, now I hear maybe people already asking, okay, Templar, what about the medieval shield? What would it be used? Well, pretty much anything, actually. In fact, we could easily see, say, a knight or whatever using a heater shield, for example, which could easily be a perfect type of design. This type of design, perfect. It could easily stop the bite from getting your one good arm and such while you're using your sword arm. However, now there are some people that would actually probably use a buckler, which is probably a good idea, because this is still a dangerous weapon. That's right, this can also be a weapon. Reason being, you can bash into someone's head with this. In fact, bashing it is probably the most dangerous part. And such, if a zombie, say for example, came at me, what I would actually want to do is bash at his arms, hit him in the head. Bash at his arms, hit him in the head. However, if there were two, that would be kind of scary. Such as I'd bash him in the arm, hit him in the head, bash him in the arm, hit him in the head, or strike him in the head, depending on how it would work. But in the long run, I think it might be best to be in numbers if there is more than one zombie. So, yeah. But yeah, now let's actually go into something else. What about their, well, axes? Let's take a look at this axe, for example. This is my Hungarian axe, and if we know anything about axes, they are not heavy, they are not cumbersome, they are light. How light? Light as a feather. Depending on the axe that you're using. For example, if it's that big bladed axe I used a while back, then yes, that thing's going to be hard to work with. However, this, I got a multiple tool weapon. This is a Hungarian style axe, and with this, I got a hammer on the end, I got a blade, as well I got a thrusting piece, as well I got this hook on the back that I could probably use to hook a zombie to probably have him trip or whatever, but seeing if he's rotten, for example, that might not be a good idea. However, this thing, I can easily cut with it, as well I can thrust with it. As well, if a zombie comes at me, I can then, let's say if he was wearing a helmet, just boop, right in the head, he might actually die from that. Hopefully. Okay, so pretty much that actually includes our type of, well, weaponry for melee. But the thing is, what about ranged weapons? Well, one we, well, would use bows and crossbows mostly, because one, they were a lot easier to remanufacture, and the fact is, for more accuracy to the head, I would have to probably say a crossbow might be best. However, yes, we did use firearms back then. Problem is, I don't know if they'll be able to get the same amount of resources in a apocalyptic world when they're kind of too afraid to even walk outside of a castle, for example. So, not the best idea to actually do that. So, what would be the tactics for the said medieval time period? Well, one, there would be no idea of some stupid idiots charging out in a massive formation, like if you see like in Game of Thrones, how stupid they were to actually charge out like that into the middle of, well, a zombie horde. If we know one thing, that's not going to end well, and such, those zombies are still going to come after you, and it's going to get only worse. Because now, they are now part of the dead army. And it's probably also going to hopefully not be on a horse, because that would probably be the scariest damn thing I would actually see, as a zombie riding on a horse. Yikes, I hope the Four Horsemen aren't listening. But, I hear many people already asking, okay, Templar, what about the cyber form and how it would have worked in the tactics? Well, one, I would actually see them probably defending their homes, their villages, their livelihoods, mainly from a castle, or as well, mainly a walled city, which did exist back in the medieval period. There were many areas during the medieval period that did have what you might call a walled city to defend their said homes. And in such, though, the only people that would probably die first would be those at the farms that are outside of the said structures of the wall. So, yeah, unless you're fast enough to get back in your house. A good example of this could actually be seen from the video game Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I know you all played the game. I highly recommend playing this for a medieval feel and such. And as well, we do see walled structures. We see castles and such. Now, one thing we have to understand is that most of the time the zombies are going to try and go to the door or the main gate where they actually saw the humans running to. And in such, that would be our major example. And that's where we get the murder hole. And now you know what a murder hole is. It's a type of thing where you actually get underneath the said, well, portcullis. Or in this case, right in the middle of the said, well, it's technically right underneath the main type of area of the gate. In other words, here's the gate, here's the ceiling or roof and such. And guess what? Right on top, that's the murder hole that you would drop stuff down on. You would drop molten lead, you would even a dead cat or something. But pretty much in this case, I would actually want to throw a rock down or as well shoot a crossbow or just release an arrow down through that area. So that would probably be the best option for this case. And in such, these zombies would technically be getting killed. So the Horde would pretty much stop there. Unless there were hundreds of thousands of them enough to pretty much pile up on a wall, which I don't think they would actually have that. So, no, I think the medieval wall would still hold. However, what about a medieval town that did not have that? Well, still, there would be the, well, type of Moat and Bailey design of castle. Or in this case, a Moat and Bailey type village, or whatever you want to call it as, which this is mostly during the Norman period, and in such, these were still very highly defensible, and as such, the zombies would pretty much only probably go toward the main gate, as I said. This would still pretty much be in your perfect type of form to pretty much throw rocks, or as well, shoot an arrow, or even, well, a bolt from your crossbow bolt. And in such, I could probably see the zombies probably dying off very, very soon in that point. So, yeah. And as such, sometimes there were even these weird elongated pikes that were known to stab at a zombie when they got, or a human being if they got too close to the gate. In fact, this could actually be seen in, I want to say, the eastern end of Wales, for example, when the Normans tried to invade Wales once and failed. And in fact, it's actually said that at least 25 Welshmen died by the point of a spear from the gate area alone. From just one guy. That's saying something. However, we don't know if they might have been done a artistic type design on that. We don't know. I don't know. So, yeah. However, we do have to understand is the fact that it would still work. So, that would actually entirely, pretty much work entirely for it. Alright, now I hear maybe you already saying, oh, Templar, if you know this one, you know how to do this one. What about the antiquities? Well, you pretty much gave me a little bit of a good one there. I actually have a couple of armies, that of which might work. One to the major fact we can actually see with the Celt Iberians, which were known to actually be very great metalsmiths and such, and in such we can easily see them actually manufacturing many weapons and type of tactics and gear that the Romans would actually use. This would actually be the gladius sword, as well as even their military. They would even have the scutum type shield or tower shield to defend it with, and as well they would even use pretty much slingers or whatever to probably defend themselves, I want to say, but I would pretty much see them probably using a gladius sword and a scutum like shield for a defensive type role. However, they do have a problem. They don't have that elongated spear to defend them with. This is where the Greek hoplite comes into play, which these guys are heavy type military guys. They have a shield that protects their entire body, and in such, they can actually protect their entire body entirely, because one, if none of y'all know how the Greek phalanx was known to, well, move, it'd be kind of like this. It would not look like a flattened type of, well, line. It would actually be more of a, well, a jagged, well, point towards one side. Meaning, when it came up against their opponents, say for example like a zombie horde, that zombie horde would probably go for the first man that's on the one side. Now why? Pretty much he's a little bit pointed outward because the shields were known to overlap a lot more differently than what we think. And as such, they actually have that dory spear. They're going to thrust with it. And as such, they're going to be pretty much protected from head to toe, and it's not going to end well for the zombie. So, I think our Greeks are probably going to survive. Okay, now I also hear many people also saying, what about the Macedonian pike formation? Yes, I could also say the Macedonian pike formation would work. Problem is, I don't know if that would actually stop the zombie from going down the pike. Which, this is actually where I kind of am a little scared to even include them. Because, one, it's like this. Say, for example, I'm a Macedonian soldier. Ah! I just put out my pike. Fear me, zombie? No, wait, they don't have any fear, dumbass. It's coming right down the and next thing you know, that zombie is just coming right down the pike. That would probably cause me to drop my pike or probably run the hell away from that thing. So I probably would not say the Macedonian pike formation would probably be the best idea to stopping these things. Because, don't get me wrong, Alexander the Great was a genius, but the thing is, no, I do not want that thing coming right at me, and I have no way to stop it. Because one, if you drop the pike, you're technically allowing the rest of the horde to somewhat come through. Yeah, see, this is the problem with the Macedonian pike formation. It was not the best if it came to the fact someone got through all those pikes. Thing is, though, a pike is not that easy to maneuver on your own, which is why it was somewhat stopped being used, but then started to be reused, so yeah. Now I can already hear this one coming out a mile away. Templar, what about the Roman military? They had the greatest military in the world. Yeah, at a certain point in times. For example, we actually do know that they were once the Roman Hoplite during the early Roman Republic. However, they did get slaughtered by the Celtic horde led by Brennus. So, I don't know if that's going to work. But, yeah. But since they are technically somewhat armored head to toe, I think that might have worked. I don't know. But then we also got to take a look at the said, well, historical Roman Imperial and as well the late Roman Republican military, in which these guys were known to have worn a multitude of different armors, such as the Marnetifo, the Gallic helm, the Lorica Hamata, the Lorica Scimitarta. You see my point? But the thing is, they always had the Scutum shield, the big Scutum tower shield. So that would actually work. And the thing is, with their Gladius sword, this would actually probably be the best option. Because one, they're not gonna, but the problem is, they're gonna have to stab not from the belly, but actually towards the face, the head, the neck. Anywhere in this area, they're gonna have to stab, 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 stab. So in other words, they're gonna change their posture upward towards the brain. Problem is, if there's a zombie horde, it's gonna be kind of difficult to stop it. However, if we do take a look at the late Roman soldier, they got elongated spear, meaning they can now just thrust, 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 thrust. It could pretty much work. And by the time of the late Roman army, they actually started to use crossbows, so I could start to see this working out a little bit to their favor. Now, when we actually understand on the military strategy of Roman military at that time, it was to try and surround and such, and, well, do what they had to do. Problem is, though, I do see the Roman Imperial military using the tortoise formation to make sure the zombies didn't bite at them and such, but the problem is, if they're gonna ball up around them like a big giant tsunami, it's not going to end well. The weight is going to give in, and they're going to pretty much, well, excuse my French, but fucked. So, this this is where we have to understand ourselves. Would this work out in the long run? Maybe. But the thing is, I do see it working out better for the Roman Imperial somewhat, but more with the late Roman Imperial, not the midpoint, because one, they got a Spatha sword, which means it's a longer thrust. No longer having to worry about that short sword. They now got a longer sword, so I can now thrust. So pretty much just imagine a Germanic warrior being that zombie they were worried about. Or as well with the, because I can already see this actually now being placed in a video game or a movie. Anglo-Saxon England is now filled with zombies. It's the island of zombies, but somebody wants to populate it and such. I don't know. It's going to be really stupid if somebody actually listens to this and actually thinks I'm making a video or movie or whatever about that, because that's going to be hilarious. I'm going to start laughing if I actually hear that. But that would be a good movie, if you ask me, if somebody could actually do that. But now, there is also other cultures out there during this time. What about the people of China? Yes, they could actually work, especially with their Great Wall, for example, which could stop the said Mongolian zombie horde. I'm sorry, I just had to put that one in. However, and such, when it comes down to it, they could use the repeating crossbow like they are known to use in their own timeline. So Chinese tactics might work to stop it, but the thing is, as soon as they get to close range, I don't know if that's going to work out so well. So what about also when it comes to, say, the people of the Philippines or Thailand or Vietnam and such, and their ancient timeline before they were colonized? That's a tougher question to answer to. So one thing I have to say is it might not end well unless they do make their, historical, which, I don't know this, the Pacific Islands culture has been known to make coconut fiber armor, which is stronger than steel. Literally, a steel sword can't cut through it. So that's saying something. So if they do that, that could probably work. The problem is they're going to have a lot of it. And I mean a lot. Now, for other cultures, they might use what they call bamboo reed armor, which was known to stop certain swords in history and could easily be replaced. So that could also work also in there and such. So, yeah. However, one culture in particular I don't think I could see surviving would actually be the African cultures. One major... I already hear people already yelling at me. Reason because African-style cultures did not wear armor. Literally, they hardly were ever seen wearing armor. For example, the Zulu warriors did not wear armor. The Limditoha, or Nimnim as they're also known as, did not wear armor, and hardly any Egyptians wore armor, which is saying something during their Bronze Age culture. In fact, most of the time I would actually see human beings living in, say for example, like if we look at the Celts, they would probably live in their massive hill forts to stop a zombie horde. And in fact, a hill fort is probably the best type of structure and densest structure to even penetrate through. In fact, the Romans actually stated to have created their siege devices because they were fighting against the Celts so much in their, well, hill forts. However, if we also take a look at Masada, for example, in Israel, it's actually another perfect example to stop a said zombie horde. It's so damn steep, it's going to be near impossible for a zombie to go up it. So, yeah, it would actually be understandable to actually use this type of form of combat. In fact, Alexander the Great even faced off a military forces in Afghanistan and many parts of, well, the former Persian Empire, and as such, he had to have people climb up the cliff face to actually get into the walled city. That was the only thing they had to do. So, that's where we get our understanding. So, would it be workable? Yes, it would. However, it depends on the cultures. For example, Native American cultures, I don't know if they would actually survive. In fact, Aztec people and Mayans have been known to rip out the heart of a sacrifice. You can already tell that's going to get infected. Because if you pull out a heart of a zombie or even a an infected human, for example, that's not going to end well. It's just gonna... I don't know. Although the Mayans and Aztecs are known to have a lot of obsidian, so maybe that could help. I know, Game of Thrones type of joke. I know, I shouldn't have done that, but yeah. But many of you might start asking, Templar, what would be your best option? That's a hard one. Now, I want to say that the Greek Lionel Thorax would be a perfect armor, because one, it is technically this, well, cloth and glue, and as such, it's technically like, well, 1/4 of an inch, or actually under 1/4 of an inch thick, and in such, it's actually incredibly thin, but type armor and extremely light. However, it has been known to stop arrows, yes, but the major drawback I see with that is if I'm going to cover my entire body in it, no, because one, it's not going to work out so well when it comes to movement. I'm going to have to leave gaps open and such to move my arms. So I would probably only put it in the parts of the body that which were not being protected. So an example, if say for example I am in the ancient period, I would probably use a Scutum tower shield for self-defense against, say, a zombie horde. And such, I would use a spear to do some thrusting, as well with a Lionothorax type armor on my body, on my arms and such. However, there are parts of my body that will be exposed, such as my upper arm and as well my upper legs. And in fact, I would probably wear still these greaves just for self-protection. That's saying something. But in such, when it comes down to it, I don't know if that would actually work out so well for me in the long run. And in such, medieval period, I would probably see myself mostly wearing the same type of Viking-style armor I probably got on. And such, I would have, say, a Viking helmet, and well, a Viking helmet, maybe laminar, which laminar plate is incredibly resistant enough to cutting blows. Thrusting somewhat. If now you'll see my videos on the laminar, I will leave a link down below in the description and such, which I have tested on it with not just firearms, but also melee weapons, and even throwing projectile weapons, but we weren't that good with them for some reason. So, yeah. But the thing is, it even stopped the blow of an axe somewhat. Well, it's just saying something. And the only reason it broke was because of the leather. So laminar I would probably use in which, since it's also going over, say, a jerkin, for example, which jerkins are somewhat of the medieval or Viking version of a gambeson. I could probably wear that, which gambeson are still probably the best idea I could probably wear for light armor. And as such, for my legs, I probably would do the same with Viking-style greaves, or in this case, splinted greaves that they're known as, which could work. Would I probably also do a full body of a Crusader type armor like we see of a 13th century knight? Maybe. Maybe. Because it's kind of a 50-50 on that case, because I'm kind of worried that the mail would probably weigh me down, and the fact is, since I'm breathing in the pretty much holes, and I have my, well, face covered, it's not going to end well. However, I could probably just remove the helmet entirely of a great helm, seeing as though I'm not going to be riding into battle. I'm just going to be wearing my secret helm underneath. And since I'm going up against zombies, it pretty much would be a little bit safer just to wear a secret helm underneath my mail coif. So, there we have it. Now, in such, I would also always use a spear, just for safety measures. And as well, I would, most of the time, probably use a kite shield. My main weapon, though, would still always be my axe. The reason being, my axe is my axe. It is probably the best option of a tool / weapon. And now, I would probably also use maybe a warhammer, just in case in dire circumstances. But when it came down to a sword, no. Probably not. Not at all. Because the fact is, I would have to worry about the fact that the zombie might actually be wearing armor. And as such, I need a weapon that can get through that armor. Such as something like this. But, yeah. If any of y'all like this video, like and subscribe for more. Also, click that bell button for notifications. And as well, hopefully see y'all in the next one. And hopefully y'all, if any of y'all have any fantasy, horror, creature, or whatever you want me to cover for Fantasy Friday, let me know in the comments below. And such, we would also get right into more stuff very soon. But as well, guys, hopefully see y'all in the next one. But as well, I think I might end up doing a weapons would spider creatures use, or spider humans, whatever you want to call it, but that's just kind of scary for me. So yeah, but we might have to test that out for next Halloween. Anyways, guys, this has been Templar. Hope to see you on the next one. Like and subscribe, and as well, also check us out on Facebook. And have a great day.